Hi, if you're a person with social media, you need to know about the Fiji study. This is something that everyone should know, and they don't teach you these things on purpose. So the Fiji study was conducted in 2004, and basically what it was is that in the 90s, Fiji got TV. Prior to Fiji having TV, there was absolutely almost no eating disorders on the island that were prevalent. Very, very low case and low history. Well, only 38 months after Fiji got TV and media, they saw a dramatic skyrocket in eating disorders. So psychologists were perplexed, and they go around doing surveys. 74% of these girls reported feeling too big or too fat. 18% admitted to binging or purging. And 29.2% of them scored high on eating disorder questionnaires at the time. Now, why should you give a fuck about this? Scariest part about this study is that it wasn't even necessarily the people who owned the TVs. They found that this was getting spread and these ideologies were getting spread through the schools. The kids were reporting to each other what they had been seeing on TV. And by the fact that no one had TV except for a few, everyone would talk about it and these kids would start to develop eating disorders. This is just one example of how powerful and prevalent media is, and that's just for the TV. What the actual fuck do you think is going on when you're watching TikTok? Because I'm gonna break that down to you. Consuming short form content has neurologically been proven to destroy people's memory and to destroy people's brains. It changes your neural pathways, it changes your way of communication, it leads to a lot of side effects that people do not understand how dangerous they are. Something that I see very worrisome and prevalent in this society is that people just don't care. But the thing is that we're not the only people who are consuming media. Children consume media, adults consume media, and you should care. Whether you know it or not, what you're doing is you're scrolling through people's emotions. And people are very usually borderline sympathetic. Through evolution, people have emotional skills that are there to keep in check for survival. For example, you have fear responses. And fear responses are very useful, although unpleasant. Because if you were out in the wild and you see a big ass bear, you're gonna get scared and you're gonna go, I'm getting the fuck up on out of here. That's evolution, baby. The problem that I'm starting to see is that people have no skill to emotionally regulate anymore because you're taking in thousands of people's experiences on a daily basis. Whether you're connecting with it or not, you are witnessing it. People are not meant to see everything everywhere at once, especially a lot of these atrocities that are being carried out. I talked about Dunbar's number in my previous video, and for those of you who don't know, Robin Dunbar was an anthropologist who studied history and psychology, and he came up with a theory that you're only supposed to know 150 people in your lifetime, not right now, in your lifetime. And he based this off of a historical study, as well as studying cortexes in the brain to see how you're capable of forming connections, meaningful connections. We already see this greatly affect people who work in areas where you're coming into contact with a lot of people, whether it be something like healthcare, teaching, being in public service. People start to have a harder time remembering people's faces or names, or even have harder memory issues. And there are more and more studies like coming out with things like that or along that line. And it's because of overexposure. I want you to take the number that you're thinking of right now and multiply that by thousands, because you can argue, yeah, before we've had a lot of people in our lives and we're fine. But it's not just those people anymore. Even the people that you interact with online, a lot of the times, those are still people. Yes, they may be bots or whatever, but you're taking your time to go out of the way to throw in your 2 cents or to have these conversations sometimes. It's still interaction, even though it's a different kind of interaction. And I want you guys to truly consider just how this can change your emotion. How can this change your ability to regulate yourself? But also think about the fact that for the first time in history that we are aware of, some people on this app are witnessing thousands of things a day. People have no time to process anymore. They just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and your brain naturally will make you forget so that you can function. But it's going to become a time where this will become unsustainable. It already is unsustainable. It's just going to get worse and worse. And something that I do worry about is I'm starting to see where they're going with making technology mandatory, and it absolutely will happen if we keep going down the path we're going down. Think about it now, you barely can get a job without having some sort of technology, whether it be a phone or whether it be some sort of computer. These are things that you should start to worry about, especially when you are cultivating your relationships in your life. You need to be extremely careful who you interact with, because these days you truly do not know. And you can take it whatever I say with a grain of salt, because I'm just a bitch on the internet. But as someone who's been studying, sensation perception, human factors, I study AI systems, I study all types of fun stuff. I've been seeing a lot of these things develop full time. I've been reading a lot of this research, and I even have a soon proposal coming up. I'm thinking about my own research questions, and I'm starting to get a little alarmed because people are not really sitting down and thinking about these things or talking about these things. I also see that people are talking about loneliness epidemics, and that is something that is 100% cultivated by online communities. Because the problem is that we don't have community anymore. Think about the internet before, if you were around, think about the internet before like the early 2000s. You would go to a page and you would have a very interactive line, and it was about having a community. And now everything is about capital. It's very hard to build withstanding communities that aren't entrenched in some or another problem. A lot of these attributes, there are many factors to the loneliness epidemics, but a lot of the factors are isolation, lack of ability to cope and express yourself. Our society very much endorses this behavior and manufactures it, and there's hyper-individualism, and I can make a whole other video on that. But these are all factors that you need to think about, because this is what is really encouraged online. Hyper-individualism especially. And the more and more you start to see these things for what they are, the more damaging they are. And I really hate to break it to you, because a lot of people in my comments were like, no, I'm fine, I'm alone. I'm sorry, but if you're a human being, you adhere to these laws. Your body will literally begin to shut down from things like loneliness if you do not get enough stimuli. And that is a fact. You can look at that with institutions like the prison industrial complex, where people are thrown into solitary. We can watch as people's brains deteriorate. There are increased rates of psychosis. People who come out of the prison system, I think it's 4 times more likely to develop mental disorders and mental issues as they were before they went into the prison industrial complex. And that isn't a coincidence. It's because of things like isolation. There are many studies to track that you cannot be isolated. The problem is that you guys are sensationalizing what isolation is. It's so much worse than that. It's really weird because it's like sensational underplaying, but I want you to know, isolation is where you're not coming into contact with people. You don't have access to other people. You don't have access to anything. There are different levels of isolation. There's levels of isolation where you have less friendships or where you're not going out as much. But the thing is it becomes an issue if you have a lack of stimuli, which is interacting with certain things or people or doing things that your body needs to do to survive. After some time, your mental state will deteriorate. Your body can literally shut down. And I know that you guys are going to be like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, whatever. If you are getting things like lack of sleep, for example, which is glorified to no ends in this society, it can cause multiple health issues, chronic health conditions, psychosis. You can have mental disorders develop. What it does is it can trigger your genetic predispositions in your family line. Or hey, you might get lucky with something completely fucking new. You guys don't understand how serious a lot of this shit is, especially when it comes to isolation. The more and more isolated that you are, the more dangerous it becomes for you. And I know that's what you guys don't want to hear, but you can still live a relatively isolated life and have people outside of that. It's about keeping and maintaining that baseline stimuli. I also want to mention while we're here, if you are too traumatized, which this society really likes to talk about a lot, your body can literally shut down as well. People have lost the function of limbs temporarily and had many types of problems from issues like this. So please take yourself seriously and please take your time and attention seriously. Our attention literally shapes our reality. Did you know that if your body doesn't want to go up a hill, it will literally perceive it to be steeper than it is so that you don't take the act of going up the hill? Please be careful who you spend your time with. Media is a lot more deep than you think it is. It shapes you. Music, movies, all of it. Even social media especially. Please be careful.